Fancy Dennis, 29, Birmingham, postgraduate student.
My name's Aquila Hope, I am 37, I am from Birmingham and I am a freelancer.
Hi, my name's Jade Hannaway, I'm 23 years old and I'm from Birmingham and I'm a multidisciplinary artist.
My name is Adam Carver, I'm 29 years old from Birmingham and I'm an independent creative producer.
My name's Nora Young, I'm 52. I live and work in Neutrals in Birmingham and I work in a community centre called Neutrals Pod where I'm the activities coordinator and I'm also a project support worker for the Neighbourhood Network Scheme.
It's taken me a while to consider what I do activism, in that the work that I do isn't necessarily about being out on the streets and protesting or in a more sort of conventional sense of what we might think activism is. But it is about occupying space and it's about creating space for other people and advocating for change and doing that actively.
I consider myself an aspiring activist. I think to call myself an activist when I'm still very much at the beginning of my journey is a discredit to all the brilliant black women that came before me to make it possible for me to exist as like a human being today. So yeah, aspiring, we're getting there.
I consider myself an activist because of the unique intersection I'm at, because I'm not just a person of colour or black, I'm happy to be trans and non-binary. So that means activism is almost part of my day-to-day.
It's been a part of my culture for a long time, being a black person. We've been activists since, well, forever, basically, since post-slavery. It's been very popular during the 50s and 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way to now. So it continues to be a part of our culture, so it's very important to me.
I think I've been an activist all my life. To me, an activist is somebody who's trying to change society. And I've been trying to do that for as long as I can remember.
All of my activism focuses around the queer community and creating space for LGBTQ+ people, and particularly advocating for the intersections within that as well, not kind of being one homogenous idea of what being queer is. Recently, my activism has been focusing around creating space for young people and responding to the need for working with children, telling children about providing queer visibility for children, young audiences, for families, and countering the kind of rise in homophobic and transphobic narratives that we've been seeing particularly increasing in the last couple of years, to find ways that we can make change for young people and that we can teach them that it's okay to be different and actually the things that make us different are things that should be celebrated. And that's a combination of working directly with young people and also then advocating for change around the structures that support young people.
I'm involved in work I do independently as a spokesperson for the NER network, so I'm often called in to deal with either interviews over the phone. So I've been on LBC, I've been on Talk Radio, I have been on BBC Radio WN in regards to anything trans related or trans rights related. So I've been called in to answer questions and make a case. Often they can range from 5 minutes to 15, 20 minutes interviews.
Environmentalism, that can be broken down into veganism as well. Black social issues as well as LGBT issues, but again that can be broken down into specifically pansexuality and bisexuality as well.
Currently, my main form of activism is through my art, so that would be through my music or through the visual art that I do, or through creating spaces or doing hair or anything that means that I can be creative and like get a message across.
I'm really blessed that I work in a community centre where I work within the community all the time. So, and because we're a charity, we have the ability to respond to what the community needs. So we're constantly working within the community, helping people to help themselves, enabling people, helping them use their agency. I'm also a member of the Labour Party in my spare time, so there's various things that come out of that. But generally, I'm blessed that it's my job to do the stuff I love doing.
My journey to where I am today started through connections that I made with Beat Freaks. I used to do poetry in church. I grew up in the church. And when I left, there was kind of like nowhere for me to go with that energy or with that form of creativity. And one of my friends from college told me about Beat Freaks, and then it just kind of all snowballed from there, with getting involved with loads of different organisations and just building and growing and making as much as I possibly can.
From a very young age, I was always interested in journalism in some way, shape or form. We're talking way back in the days of Newsrat and such. I was very interested in journalism until life took over. And as I eventually did come out, I've realised that not only did I have an important role, but I had something to say about being a trans person.
I think it's probably a combination of two things. The first being like a long journey of my own kind of self-discovery and really starting to unpick and understand the structures and the things that have happened around my sort of growing up that impacted on me as a queer person and that have influenced the way that I've seen the world or seen myself, and a journey to kind of unpick that and to really sort of analyse why I feel the way I do and why other people feel the way that they do.
It's been a bit late, I will admit. I think because that's by design. The school education that we have in this country doesn't really teach much about Black issues. So all of the issues that I know about and all the Black knowledge that I know was outside of school, and I didn't even really start researching that until I was at university. So and that's undergrad. I came out publicly last year. But I knew in myself since I was 25. So in terms of LGBTQ, I'm quite new to it. But with the Black issues, that's been about 10 years.
I think I first started getting involved in any kind of activism when I was about 13, 14. This was during the miners' strike back in the 1980s, and I helped in soup kitchens. I marched with the miners, I collected for the miners. I got very involved in things that were going on. I then got involved with the anti-apartheid movement. I did peace studies at university. I was involved in lots of different political campaigns. And then I settled down, became a school teacher. But even while I was teaching, I was doing lots of different things that I felt passionate about. Over the last few years, I've worked in Calais in the refugee camp that they used to call the Jungle. I used to teach there during the summer holidays. I ended up collecting things from schools, taking our school minibus over. I volunteered with food banks until eventually I've started actually doing it as my job. So yeah, it's been a journey. It's been lots and lots of different ways that I've been involved in things. I've just always believed that you should always help other people, and that part of life is about working with your community. I disagree with the individualistic way that a lot of society is going, where it's just about being selfish and looking after yourself and your family. I believe human beings are meant to live in communities. We're social creatures, we look after each other, that's how we survive.
Initially, I was very inspired by the work of Larry Kramer, who was an American playwright and activist. He was kind of integral in the formation of ACT UP, which was the organisation created in response to the AIDS crisis, when the American government wasn't putting in any systems or resources to try and support finding cures, starting with AIDS and HIV prevention. And so we lost like a whole generation of mostly gay men, and disproportionately that affected people of colour. And he really started to use the platforms that he had to really rail against the system and to demand change in really quite aggressive ways. And I think that, so he was like a first sort of early inspiration for me. The second is Marsha P. Johnson, who was a trans woman of colour who is credited with having like thrown the first brick at the Stonewall riots, which started the sort of queer liberation, gay liberation movement. And actually that's been debated as to whether she did or not, but she did this amazing legacy work after Stonewall, creating spaces for young trans people and for homeless queer people who didn't have anywhere else to go, who'd been thrown out of their homes by their families or whatever sort of circumstances had happened to that, and to make space for them in a city like New York. I think that was, so she has always remained kind of figure for me. And the third one, someone who is doing, I think, really important work right now, is Travis Alabanza. They are an artist, an activist whose work advocates for better support, for change, for structural equality for trans people. But I think that they've done that in a very unique way that looks at how can we use creativity and media, and how can we think about those tools which are readily available to us to become platforms to affect change, and to kind of really use those to be very unapologetic about themselves. And I think that has kind of inspired the way that I think about approaching my activism.
3 people who have inspired me to get involved with activism are Soraya Aisha. She's the founder of Unmuted and the co-founder of Colours Youth Festival, which are both platforms for LGBT, people of colour, or cutie pot young people. Another one would be Fanny Sosa, who is from the States, and I remember she did this film that was called Twerking as a form of radical empowerment, and that just really, I don't know, I guess it kind of like lit a different kind of energy under me in terms of like my self-love journey, of the fact that there are certain elements or aspects of womanhood that are seen as like degrading that can be like super empowering. And the last person that inspired me would be Demi Nandra. She's a theatre maker and a performer, and she wrote this play called Life Is No Laughing Matter, which discusses her journey with like her mental health and depression, and that really inspired me to be like unapologetic and brave with my neurodiversity and other aspects of the way that my brain works that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about using in an activist capacity before.
I could point to various heroes of mine, Malcolm X, and Gandhi was a big inspiration. But to be honest, it was ordinary people that inspired me. It was really people that I first met when I first helped in those soup kitchens. It was ordinary people who go out every day, not people that are written about in newspapers, not people who make headlines, not people that become famous, people who give up of their own time without any accolades. It's people that are making the tea and running things and running. Nowadays, I mean, back when I was young, we didn't have food banks, we didn't have any of the conditions that we have now in the UK. But now they say people that used to do the various bits and pieces are running food banks, they're keeping society going, and they never get any praise or any accolades, and that's not what they're doing it for. And those to me are the real heroes.
There are still people who are not aware, and whether it be blissful or willful ignorance, it needs to change. I want to create obviously movements and spaces and promote spaces for those issues as well. I think it's very important because the way the world is at the moment, it's very white and European focused. So it's important that we obviously realise that there's more outside the world than being white and European, being male.
I hope, really, my aim is for all the queer and trans youth, they can have a level of confidence to say, okay, that person has done that, what else can I do in terms of what they can say about their own lives? I just really want to make a path for the trans youth to be able to be themselves and not having to worry about being verbally or physically harmed.
I'm hoping to support other neurodiverse people to understand that their access needs are important and that the way that their brain works is just as valid and just as worth being given a chance to grow and thrive and flourish and participate. I'm hoping to let neurodiverse people know that they deserve to take up space just like anyone else.
I want to achieve equality in a way that isn't assimilation. That doesn't mean that we're not the same and we can celebrate the things that make us different and we all have space to do that, but we are all of equal standing. And actually, I think what that really comes down to is safety. There's like a fantastic quote from Deshaun Williams which says that to be visibly queer is to choose your happiness over your safety. And that's like something that really inspires me to think about the work that I make, the spaces that I create, but also the way that I present myself in space. That's about disrupting space. And I think that what I'm looking for is the eradication of that. The idea that we don't have to compromise safety for happiness. I think whenever we meet with opposition, that to me is a clear sign that that is a space where the work is needed. I think that it can be a very difficult space to occupy opposition because you're so emotionally invested, and a big part of activism and making change and making space is emotional labour, and you're obviously very personally invested in whatever the work that you do is. And so for me, like, those moments are difficult to deal with. I meet structural resistance a lot, but that's gone right the way through to, I've received death threats for being a queer person around children. I think that, firstly, that has to happen in conversation. I think that it has to happen in places where we can create empathy. And I think that can't happen very well in digital spaces, in social media spaces, and often that's where a lot of resistance comes from. My approach often is to try and understand the thinking that has led someone to have their opinions, and then work out how we start to unpick that.
If they've done their research and if they're nice and if it's like in a debating setting where they have respect for the person they're talking to, then I would be inclined to do the same thing and respectfully debate my points. But if it's a person who's shouting at me their points, or they've just been ignorant, or they haven't checked the facts or anything like that, it depends if it's a person who's, you can tell they want to change, or if they're the kind of person who doesn't want to change. So again, it goes back to being either being willfully ignorant or blissfully ignorant. When you're being blissfully ignorant, you can be changed, but if you're being willfully ignorant, it's a lot harder.
I would say actually talk to somebody who's actually trans or non-binary, because the main issue with those who oppose is there's this one little missing section, which is the empathy and the humanity of it all. I understand that they have fears and concerns, but it's very much us and them, and putting the frame of they're over there, they're doing this, they're there, rather than actually finding out who the person is behind what's being told to them and actually having the conversation. It might not change hearts straight away, but it turns it from a theory into a practice, into there's an actual person behind all their reasonings.
I think the approach would be very passive, because you don't get to oppose my humanity or my right to exist as a human being. Google is free, so Google it. I'm not arguing with people that don't deserve my energy.
I'm not somebody who believes that you can necessarily change people's minds by arguing the opposite. I think what you do is you change their minds by letting them see what you're achieving. So people don't say, oh no, I think it's terrible for people to work together. They just tend to be cynical about whether it will work. And that's at the point when I go, yeah, okay, if you don't think I can do this, that's fine. Would you mind just standing aside while I do? And that way, then they see what you achieve. And that's how you change people's minds.
The most rewarding part of what I do is seeing change. It's seeing that in very literal ways. Knowing that I run a project where we take a troupe of drag kings and queens and queer performers out around the country, and we take them into towns, city centres, spaces, and we have a full show that's aimed at kids ages 3 to 8. And I get to see, whenever that happens, a change. We see hundreds of people watch that each time we perform it, and I see parents change, and I see children become more confident. They start to learn that they can be whatever they want and that they can celebrate themselves. And we've had parents and grandparents come up to us and tell us the way that the work changes the way that they think, or has made them consider their relationships, their children differently. And so actually, like, watching, physically being able to watch that process of change is a real privilege, because a lot of the time you're lobbying for something that you don't necessarily get to be part of the moment where someone changes. So for me, like, being that catalyst for people to change is the most rewarding thing ever.
I still think some days I don't make an impact, but when those moments do come and some people literally comes up to me and said, "You've made this massive impact," I don't know why I'm so surprised, but I still am surprised, because you work so hard at it and you try to do your best in what you do, but when you inspire others, they let you know about it. It is worth everything that you do, it's worth all the hard work.
I think it's seeing those little feel-good stories you see online, in the news, in social media, especially when you're a part of it, it's a local thing. You see like something that makes you feel nice and say, yeah, you know what, I'm part of that change, or I did something there, and people are going to see that, no matter how big or small it is. So just bringing some positivity into the world.
I think the most rewarding part would probably be on the days where I feel like a potato or like deep fried trash, and I don't feel like I'm adding value, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything important, and then I do something creative that resonates with someone, and that they're able to like take something out of that. Like, even on my worst day, like a reminder that even when you feel like chaos, that people can still like be healed through the things that you offer to the world.
The most rewarding part of my activism was the fact that I really do meet the most amazing and inspiring people. I have great good news stories on a weekly, if not daily basis. I literally every day write down what I'm grateful for. And I cannot remember the last time that I had to struggle to think of something, because there are just small victories every day. It may just be something where you just see that one person start to blossom, or you just see the green shoots of something starting to come up. Quite literally, it may be something growing, or it may be metaphorically with something in the community. But actually, when you see people come together, when you see what people can achieve, one of my mottos is, do you know what to do, how to make someone else smile? Smile at them. And it's even a smile sometimes can make a difference. And sometimes just to make someone else smile can be my victory for the day.